Hello, and thank you for tuning in. Here on the Employee to Designer podcast, we're passionate about helping interior designers, whether new or seasoned, break free from feeling like an employee and truly embrace their role as creative leaders. This transition doesn't have to be overwhelming or confusing. With the right resources and a supportive community, you'll find the guidance you need to thrive. You're exactly where you need to be to start your exciting journey. Hello, and welcome to the Employee to Designer podcast. I'm your host, Monique Nicole, former advertising corporate executive turned retired interior decorator, and now a business coach for interior design professionals. And I am so glad you're here. If this is your first time joining the podcast, welcome. And if you're family to the Employee to Designer podcast, welcome back. For those of you who don't know me and may have stumbled across this podcast, ironically, my story is probably a lot like yours. You see, I spent way too long feeling stuck in a job that didn't fulfill me, yearning for something more purposeful and liberating. And that's when I embarked on a quest to discover my true gift and purpose, leading me to leave my corporate job and start my own six-figure residential interior design business over a decade ago. And through my journey of numerous trials and failures, I've learned invaluable lessons about navigating the challenges of building, growing, and scaling a profitable interior design business. And my life's purpose now is to teach and share them all with you. Before we dive into today's episode, let me ask you something. Are you an emerging interior designer eager to launch your own business but unsure of where to start? Or maybe you're a seasoned designer feeling stuck, working tirelessly in your business but not seeing the growth you want? Have you invested in design school, courses, and webinars only to be left confused about how to build, grow, and scale a successful interior design business? If you're nodding yes, then you're in the right place. You see, from my own journey of discovering my passion for interior design later in life, building a part-time business while working full-time, and even navigating the gap between employee and entrepreneur, I learned that traditional education doesn't prepare you to run a business. And that's why we created the Employee to Designer quiz. This free resource will help you pinpoint which business phase you're in, whether that be the transition, the build, grow, or scale phase, and it'll show you which phase is holding you back. So I invite you to take the quiz now to unlock your free guide with step-by-step instructions on how to conquer your current phase and propel your business forward. Let's turn your design dreams into a thriving reality starting today. Welcome to the Employee to Designer podcast, the podcast that teaches and empowers professional interior designers and decorators how to turn their gifts into a multi-figure business in a smart, responsible, and healthy way. I'm your host, Monique Nicole, and in today's episode, we'll be discussing a topic that will help you transition from employee to designer, no matter if you're an emerging designer and just starting out, or a seasoned designer that feels like an employee in your own business. Today's topic is all about how to price and package your design services for maximum profit, and specifically, what are the steps that you need to take to make this happen. Join us as we uncover the strategies, mindset shifts, and practical steps needed to turn your dream business into a thriving enterprise. All right. Well, hello and welcome to the Employee to Designer podcast, Season 2, Episode 1, How to Price and Package Your Design Services for Maximum Profit. So I'm really excited to talk about this topic because I think it's one of the areas that, if we're honest, we all kind of struggle in, right? And it's one of those things that will always be evolving in your business, meaning your services may change over time, and as a result, your pricing will need to change, right? And so I want to kind of talk about this topic because I think that there are some, misconceptions on how to do this the effective way, and I think people do it a lot differently depending on who you are and kind of, what you've learned about creating services and things like that in your business. And so I just want to kind of get all of us on the same playing field, right? And really share with you some perspectives that I think will help you to create the right services and the right pricing structures for your business, and hopefully just kind of give you some insight on how to do this and how to really create services and price them the right way so that you can build that maximum profit in your business. So we're going to dive right in, and I'm going to start with just really sharing some key considerations to think about. Now, I know that some designers, as they're building their business, they think that price is just one of those things where you can just kind of make it up, right? Sometimes. That's not everyone, of course, but I've come across many designers who just kind of look at or just price their services based on what they think feels good, or what, they see other designers pricing their services at. And so while some of these things are correct, not all of them are. And I think that there's a key combination of things you need to consider to do this the right way. And so the first one is really looking at what level of expertise do you bring to the table. I remember being at a conference, and I want to say it was a IDS conference for the Interior Design Society. And shout out to them. They're amazing. They've got a lot of great resources for designers. So if you're not a member, definitely check them out. And that's Interior Design Society. But anyway, I was at this conference, and there was a guest speaker there, and she had us do this exercise. And she made everyone in the room write down on a piece of paper what the cost of their design consultation was. So like the paid consult. And she had everybody put, their answers, fold them up, put them in a box. And she started drawing some of the answers. And you would not believe like the level of variation of what designers in the room were pricing their design consultations at. It was like mind blowing. And she was like taking them out and reading them one by one. And like some people were like nothing, saying that they don't charge at all. And then there were some people who paper she pulled out and it was like $25. There was some people with like $50. There was some at like $75. And then you had some people, charging over $100 or several $100s. And so what was so interesting, and I think why she did the exercise, was she wanted to show that like, we're not probably doing this right. And not just to show we're not doing it right, but just to show the level of variation, which really shows that there's a lack of understanding of like how to do this right. And so she really did kind of prove the point. And that led her to sharing with us, like, first of all, you should be charging for your design console. Unless you have a very unique business model and there's a reason that you have to justify not charging for it, you really should be charging for it. Okay, so that's the first thing. And then the second thing she told us was that at the very bare minimum, you should be charging $75 an hour, like just at the minimum. If you're just starting out, that's kind of like the benchmark. And so it really helped, I think, a lot of people put into perspective, like where the starting point should just be. So if you're just emerging and you're just getting into the design industry, you're just starting your business, and you may be feeling like, well, I don't have a lot of experience, or, I don't done a lot of projects. So how could I charge a premium price for my design services? Here's the thing, right? You have obviously done some type of work to get to where you are, to get to this point of, starting your interior design business. And so at the bare minimum, I'm sure you have some type or a level of expertise that is important for you to get compensated for, right? And so $75 is like that good benchmark. And I just remember taking that key, nugget away, and it's something that has set with me throughout my career. And, it was a great example. And I really do believe that like $75 is a good benchmark to start. And then obviously if you're more seasoned, you can charge a little bit more, right? I know for me, during kind of the last couple of years of my design business, I used to charge $400 for a design consultation, right? Now I worked in New Jersey and New York, so that was actually kind of on the lower end. And then I ended up moving to Virginia, and I still was able to charge $400. Now, two different markets, right? And I did test it out, and I was able to, sustain that price point. And so again, you just have to look at what your expertise is and really kind of find, where your balance is. So anywhere from $75 to up to several $100s, even thousands of dollars. Some, high-end designers can charge that just because of the level of their expertise. And so when you think about expertise, I want you to think about your number of years of experience, right? How experienced you truly are, meaning how good you are, right? So, think about like the athletes of the world, or let's just think about the performers, the singers of the world. You've got, your big mega superstars like your Beyoncés and your Janet Jacksons and your Madonnas, right? And so if you were booking manager, and let's just say your job was to book talent and hire these entertainers, you better believe that if you try to call up Madonna's, booking agent, you're going to be paying an arm and a leg, right? It's going to be very expensive to book her versus if you book what we used to call like a C or D level artist, which is maybe a brand new artist just starting out, trying to build their following and their fan base, right? It's going to be a lot less. You might be able to afford that. So again, that's just based on their expertise and level of experience. And that's why you can have different levels and different price points. And so I want you to think about your experience from not just how much experience you have, but really truly assess how good you are. How good are you, right? So going back to the entertainers, that if a Beyonce or a Madonna or a Janet Jackson, if they show up, right, they're going to give 200%. Like they're going to give you a show, okay? And you're going to pay for it. And, this is a great example because I remember, over the years, I love going to concerts, right? And so I remember over the years, I would go to concerts, and I just remember back in the day, we used to go to this concert. It was like a concert that came around every year in Virginia called Jams Fest. Shout out to VA, anybody who knows about that. But it would be like, maybe 7 or 8 artists on the roster to perform, and the tickets were like $10. But of course, there was no theatrics. There was no it was no frills. It was just the artist on stage performing. And we were okay with that because we were kids. But as I got older, I started to go to other types of concerts. And the more high end and more experienced the performer was, the more expensive it cost. Like I remember going to a Beyonce concert actually years ago, and I wouldn't go today, but I went years ago. And I remember like the tickets were like over $200 a piece, right? So you talk about $10 compared to $200. And that is because the production that the Beyonce's concert provides and the show, the level of expertise it provides is night and day to like the concerts I used to go to for $10. So you have to really think about like, how good are you? And be honest with yourself. If you know that you're just starting, like, it's okay, you're going to get there, but you need to really be honest and evaluate your expertise so that you can confidently and, I would say with a good conscience, price your services at the right price. The other thing is not just your experience, and not how good you are, but also if there's something specific that I guess what you would say, if you specialize in, like if you're, maybe someone who's very sought after because you do something very specific in the design industry, right? You can charge a premium for that. So you also have to weigh that in as well. The other thing you want to consider is market demand. And that just simply means what is the amount or the price point that your ideal client in your market is willing to pay. So it's, the whole old notion of supply and demand. You have to think about and look at what are other designers in your area charging, what are consumers willing to pay. So like the example of I was charging $400 for my design consultations in New York and New Jersey, that worked because the expectation is that you're going to pay, a premium, right? When you live in big cities and areas where things are just more expensive. And then, even when I moved back to Virginia, I had to reassess the market demand. And luckily, I was able to sustain my price point, but I also had to be very selective because I had to look at certain areas and neighborhoods that I wanted to target that would be willing to pay that amount. And so you have to look at what's happening in the market, what are people willing to pay for? And a great way to do that is to really look at like, what are other designers charging? What are other, I would say, comparative professionals? So maybe like in the home services field, like what are their price points, just to kind of give you an idea of what the market demand is. And you can do some research and find that out. The third thing is thinking about client budget. Now, I know that it's important for you to decide who you're going to target, who's going to be your ideal client. And with that, there may be some discovery of, what your client is willing to pay and kind of what their threshold is as far as budget goes. So, for example, let's just say you have a new client and you've had, a phone conversation, because I always recommend like a 15-minute call before you even allow them to book a consultation, right? The one that they're going to pay for. So you're going to get a little bit of information, or you should be asking questions on that call to get information to help you understand what their budget is going to be. Now, I know this is one that's always hard to get out of potential clients, especially if you haven't met them. People are sometimes resistant to talk about budget and money. But if you're really good at doing your initial consultation, you'll know ways and figure out ways how to soften that question and kind of get the information that you need. And so one of the ways you can do that is just, before you get off the call, just say, hey, I want to kind of get an idea of the investment that you're looking to spend on this project, just so I can know what and offer up and share with you what services and provide you with some advice how to kind of do this within your budget. And then you can ask them either, do you have a range? So, are you looking at under 10,000? Are you looking at between 20 and 40,000 that you are willing to invest or able to invest? Or are you looking at, above 50,000 or 100,000, right? So you can give them some ranges. So that way you're not putting it on them to give you an actual dollar amount, because people are very hesitant to do that, but at least it kind of gives you an idea. And then you could say, hey, this is my price for my consultation. How does that sound to you? Is that something you're comfortable with? And right away, you'll be able to hear on the phone, like the hesitation or if they have questions. And then that way you can handle those objections. Okay. So you have to know though, what is the client's budget? You got to get clear on that question. And so even if you have to ask it different ways, and even if you have to explain to them why this is important for you to know, I think it is very imperative for you to do that, because you're getting your client's budget is going to first let you know if they can even afford your services. I've had calls where someone's called and they've shared with me all the things they want to do in their home. And then I say, well, okay, what is your budget for this project? Or what are you looking to invest in your project? And they'll tell me $1,000. And like they just listed off like, an entire design decorating transformation of their entire home. And they're looking to spend $1,000. And so for me, that's great information, because a lot of times, or sometimes, clients have no idea of what to expect or what type of budget they're going to need for the things that they want to do. Like sometimes they just don't know. And it's our job as design professionals to educate them and support them, share with them the information that they need to know so that they can know how to move forward. And so in this example where the lady was like $1,000 is what she was looking to invest, I had to nicely say to her, well, thank you for sharing that with me. Based on, that budget amount, I can tell you this is probably what you're going to be able to accomplish. And that might just be like some accessories, right? It's definitely not going to get you a full room, design. You're not going to be able to get furniture and things with that type of budget. But here's some things we can do. Maybe we can have the consultation and I can share with you some things you can do that are more affordable, either on your own or maybe through one of our e-design services. And so maybe we can use some of your budget to kind of get started, and then I can help you with navigating the next steps. So that's a great way to say, here's what we can do with that budget. But it also gives you insight on how you can serve them. Or if maybe you're not even the right fit, maybe there's just nothing you can do with their budget. And so that helps you to really identify what services to offer them and what they can afford. Okay. Now, this also helps guide you in pricing your services, because as you start to do more consultations and those 15-minute calls, right, you're going to get an idea, especially if you're talking to potential clients in your area. You'll be able to get an idea of like what people are willing to pay and what type of budgets they might have. So just pay close attention to that, because that will help you in pricing your services moving forward. Now, the last consideration is the scope of the project. So this is kind of a different situation where this is not pertaining to pricing your actual services, but more so pricing the project, right? And providing a proposal to the client. During this time, this is usually when you have already met with the client, you've gotten a good idea of the scope of the project, and you're trying to put together a proposal, right? And so there's a couple things that's important for you to look at. The first is, what are the variable versus fixed tasks? Meaning, what are tasks that may take longer, right? You may estimate, hey, it's going to take 2 hours, but then it might end up taking 8 hours. What are some of those tasks that could change? And then you have fixed tasks, which are things that exactly pretty much to the T how long it takes you to complete and deliver the service or the product to the client, right? Now, those are really easy to price, because all you have to do is take into consideration what your hourly rate is, and then look at, okay, how many hours is it going to take you? Maybe add on a slight markup just for if things run over, right? You're not working for free. And then voila, you've got your price, right? Feeling stuck in your 9-to-5, dreaming of starting your own interior design business, but unsure of where to start? Or maybe you've been held back by imposter syndrome or fear of failure. It's time to turn those dreams into a reality. Join the Employee to Designer coaching program and transform your passion into a thriving, profitable business. Whether you're just starting out or looking to scale, our program offers tailored support with 3 membership levels, mini courses, live monthly coaching, and over 20 hours of business training, as well as access to our Employee to Designer VIP Members Club, where you can connect with a community of other like-minded design professionals, and where you can participate in exclusive challenges and gain tips on how to transition, build, grow, and scale a profitable interior design business in a smart, responsible, and healthy way. Stop letting fear hold you back. Visit MoniqueNicole.co to learn more and enroll today. Let's build the interior design business and the life that you deserve. Now, the variable tasks are a little different. They're a little bit harder because they are tasks that may change. And so I highly recommend for variable tasks that you charge by the hour or in blocks of hours. That way you can always be charging for the time that you're spending. But those are the 4 key considerations that you want to take into account whenever you are pricing your services or a project, okay? That's expertise, market demand, client budget, and the scope of the project. Now, I also want to talk a little bit about a couple of approaches that you can take to consider when you're determining your pricing. So the first one is, after you've thought about these key considerations, now you have to really think about, okay, how am I actually going to price my services, right? And so the first thing you want to do is you want to define your services. So you want to clearly outline what services you're going to offer, whether that be the consultation, maybe it's full service interior design, maybe you're going to just do project management. So whatever it is, I want you to write down those services. You need to see them on paper. You need to see them listed out so you can really get a good idea of like what are all the things you're going to offer. The next thing is you want to research market rates. So this is going back to what I was talking about, looking at the market demand a little bit. So you want to investigate what other maybe interior designers are charging in your area for similar services that you might be thinking to offer. Okay. This is just going to give you a benchmark, right? It's going to give you a benchmark of like, what is the high? What's the low? What are they charging? And then you can decide kind of where you want to fall. Do you want to be what we call the price leader and you are charging the highest price? Or maybe you want to fall in between your competitors. Or maybe you say, you know what, I really want to be the most affordable option for my audience and my ideal client. So you're going to price your prices right below maybe one of your competitors. Like whatever you need to do, look at, what's happening around you and make a decision on where you want to fall. A great example of this is gas stations, right? If you've ever noticed or have like multiple gas stations around your home or in a certain area and they're right together, you'll notice that like usually the price of gas is like a 1 or 2 cents difference because they're competing for the same customers, especially if they're on the same block or they're very close together. So price is usually the dominant factor in which they compete. And so you'll see like 1 cent cheaper or 2 cents cheaper. And so again, that's them recognizing, okay, what is my competitor priced at? So where do I want to fall? Okay. So you have to do your research on what's happening around you. Now, another thing you want to do is you want to calculate your costs. So once you've kind of figured out what services you're going to offer and you've researched some of the price points that's in your area and you've kind of thought about some pricing, you want to calculate the cost. So you want to determine your overhead costs. So the things that you're going to have to pay out. So like office space, maybe utilities, materials, maybe you're going to pay for subcontractors, because you want to make sure that your pricing is reflective of these costs, right? Now, what I mean by that is, you want to make sure that your costs or your pricing is going to cover your costs. You want to have more money coming in than going out. So this also requires you to think about like, what are your sales goals? How many design clients do you want to get per month, let's just say? And if you get these clients or when you get these clients, right, how many services do you need to sell to cover your expenses? Now, you can't answer that question unless you know and you've calculated your costs. That you mean when I say your costs, your expenses, your business expenses. So you want to have a good benchmark so you know, okay, what should I be pricing my services at so that based on how many, new clients I'm expecting to get so that it covers your expenses. Okay. Now, this fourth one is really important. So this is really where you want to think about which pricing structure you want to use. Okay, I'll say it that way. So there's a couple of pricing structures that are my top favorites and I think are the most effective. And I want to share those with you. The first one is pricing by the hour. So you're based on your hourly rate. And this is suitable for smaller projects or even consultations, right? It's also great for newer designers or emerging designers who maybe are just starting out and you're not quite sure yet, like how long things take. And so that's an important thing to learn because when you know how long something takes, you know how much you can charge for it, right? But it just takes time and experience. Like you won't know how long it takes to create a floor plan if you haven't created a floor plan before. But once you create a few, you'll get the hang of it and you'll say, oh, okay, well, this only takes me about an hour or 2 hours or maybe even 30 minutes. So that can become one of your, what I called earlier, your fixed tasks. So you can say, okay, if I'm going to charge $75 an hour and I know that to do a floor plan only takes me an hour, then I can charge $75, right? And that helps you get to your price. And so this is important, especially as you're putting packages together, because you always want to make sure that you're charging for all of the deliverables that you're offering at your hourly rate. So if you have a floor plan and if you got a design board and you've got all these other things, to get to the package price, you want to add all of those tasks up based on your hourly rate. So you want to take the number of hours it's going to take you to complete that task, multiply it times your hourly rate, and that's going to give you your price for that specific task. And then if you have a package of multiple deliverables or tasks, right, you're going to add them all up. And that's going to give you your base price for that package, right? And I always recommend adding on like a percentage, slight margin, maybe 20 to 30% of what my uncle used to call what the hell happened money or pricing. He used to say, you should always have a what the hell happened savings fund, right? And so you want to have a what the hell happened margin markup because sometimes things get a little crazy and it might take a little longer than you had anticipated. And you have to make sure that you have baked in compensation for that. Okay, so hourly rate is a great way to start. It does require you to track your time. And I always recommend if you're just starting out to, at least for maybe the first year, charge hourly. Now, you don't have to charge just by the hour. You can charge in blocks of hours, which is great, so that, the client doesn't feel like you're sending them an invoice every 5 seconds, but you can charge in blocks of 10, 20, 30, or 40 hours. That way they know exactly what they're paying for, and you don't have to send them as many invoices as you would if you're charging strictly by the hour. So the second pricing structure is the flat fee, which we just talked about a little bit. And this is common for larger projects with a well-defined scope, right? So again, as you're building that package out, with all the services you're going to offer, this is great if you know how long things take and you can price it out. It's very convenient. You don't have to track your time, but it does require you to have a really good understanding of how long things take so that you can make sure that you're pricing your package accordingly. All right, third structure is the percentage of a project cost. So this is where you add up all of the materials and all of everything that it's going to cost you to, bring the project together. And then you just charge the client a percentage of the total project budget. Okay, so let's just say, the total amount of the cost was going to be $50,000. You might charge them 5 or 10% of that, 20%, or, a percentage that you're comfortable with to manage and to fulfill that project. Okay. Now, the fourth one is value-based pricing. And this one is more based on aligning, your fee with the value that you bring to the client. So it really doesn't have anything to do with your hourly rate or anything like that. It's really looking at the project value and, your experience. And a lot of high-end designers charge this way. And so, for example, no matter what the project is, let's say it's a full home design project, they're not looking at how long it's going to take them. They're just looking at, okay, the value that I will bring to design your home is going to be X. And that could be any amount, honestly, because your value is really based on your perception and the perception of your clients. And so you have to know what that is. And so I would say I wouldn't recommend this for emerging designers. Really, this is for very seasoned designers who've been doing this for a long time and they know what their clients are willing to pay. And, they're very confident in pricing this way. Okay. But that is an option. So those are the 4: hourly rate, flat fee, percentage of project costs, and value-based pricing. Now, the other thing you want to consider is the budget and expectations of your client. So you want to understand your client's budget early on, like I mentioned earlier, so that it aligns with your proposal. Okay. So for example, if the client tells you their budget is $20,000 and then you go back and you give them a proposal for $80,000, the client's going to be like, okay, there was definitely clearly a disconnect. And so you want to make sure that you're listening and you're asking the right questions so that your pricing will align with the budget that you guys should have discussed earlier on. Also, you want to factor in profitability. So your pricing should not only cover costs, but also generate profit. So I kind of talked about this a little while ago where, when you're calculating your expenses, you want to make sure you're not just pricing your services so that you can break even. We're in this for profit. Like the name of this episode, as I mentioned earlier, is pricing your services for maximum profit. So you have to be smart about this and make sure that, when you're pricing your services, again, it's with the intent in mind to cover not only your expenses, but also to keep something for yourself and make a profit. Now, a quick little tip is you want to create detailed proposals. So when you're pricing your services, you want to clearly outline which your fee covers so that it's very clear to the client. So whether that's including design concepts, drawings, procurement, project management, just so that there's no misunderstandings, okay? So once you have your prices set and you're putting that proposal together, make sure that you're outlining the details so that the pricing is clear. And then last but not least, it's very important for you to communicate your value, okay? Oh, actually, this is not the last one. I have two more. But you want to communicate your value. So I recommend that you highlight your expertise, your portfolio, any unique selling points to justify your pricing, right? So this can be included in your proposals or even on your website so that before you even book a new client, they really understand what you bring to the table, okay? And then number 9 is about reviewing and adjusting. So periodically, you want to review your pricing, your strategy based on maybe feedback that you've gotten from clients or even market changes. So like the example I gave you when I moved, thankfully, I didn't have to change my consultation price, but it's something that I did evaluate, right? I had to make sure that my clients here in Virginia were going to be willing to pay that price. And also you want to evaluate your business growth. As you grow and you get better, like you can adjust your pricing accordingly, right? And so your business may change, it may shift, the type of services may change. And so all of that is going to dictate if your price points change as well. So you just want to always be constantly reviewing and adjusting as needed. I typically recommend every 6 months because life happens and things change very quickly. Or if you're pivoting in your business, maybe you're, moving on to offer something a little bit different, I recommend that you also review your pricing and adjust as needed. Now, last but not least, legal and contractual considerations are very important as well. So you want to ensure that all your contracts are clear about payments, terms, the scope of work, and any additional fees that you might charge. So you might, share with the client your design packages, right? And those prices with them. But it's also very important to make sure you're sharing any additional cost or fees that they might incur right outside of your normal pricing for your services, because trust is very important. And the more you can communicate and be clear with your clients and upfront and honest, the more of a loyal customer you'll create. And there's nothing like having a loyal customer, a customer who's a ride or die, who is going to, scream to the mountaintops, the rooftops about your business and your, what you've helped them do and accomplish, and people who can become your own marketing ambassadors, right? That is how you build a successful, long-term, profitable business, is because you turn your customers into people who are almost like your marketing ambassadors, your marketing agents, right? They're going out and telling people about how wonderful your services are just because you've done such a great job, not just on the design side, but managing them and managing their projects. And that comes with clear communication and just being upfront and asking questions and listening, being a very good listener. And so these are the things I think are really important for you to consider when you're thinking about pricing. And this is something you can use as you're starting out, or even if you are a seasoned designer and you've been in business for, years, looking at your services thinking, okay, are these prices still the way that they should be, or maybe you need to adjust them. This is a great guide for you to think about how to do that. So I hope this helps. And in summary, today's episode, we discussed some key strategies for pricing your interior design services, including defining your services, researching market rates, calculating costs, and even choosing the right pricing structure. We also cover the importance of understanding client budgets, creating detailed proposals, and legal considerations. So I want to thank you so much for listening, and I hope you found this episode helpful. And thank you for tuning in to today's podcast. And if you enjoyed today's episode, I want to ask you to please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. You can also follow me on social media at Monique Nicole Co, or you can visit me online at moniquenicole.co. For more tips, I also share inspiration and different things on my social media platforms. But until next time, keep designing with passion and purpose. I look forward to seeing you and hearing you on the next episode.